I was working with a young man that I found in Canada, Michael Bublé. Maybe some of you have heard of him.
Yeah.
And he came down to see me, and I liked him.
He gave Frank Sinatra the anthem of immortality, My Way, the song that made men cry at funerals, that became the hymn of a generation. But here's the truth nobody talks about. While Sinatra was lifted into legend, Paul Anka's own life was unraveling. Behind the golden smile and the polished tuxedo, Paul Anka carried wounds that fame couldn't heal, heartbreaks that no stage could drown out, and scandals that nearly erased him from history. This is the real story of Paul Anka. Not the glossy headlines, not the teenage idol, the man who lost more than most people ever knew and survived it all his way. Paul Anka was born in Ottawa in 1941, the son of Lebanese and Syrian immigrants. His father ran a small restaurant. His mother filled their home with lullabies, and it was her soft voice that shaped his first sense of music. But that gift came with a curse. When Paul was only 19, his mother died suddenly at just 45. It was the first fracture in his life, a silence that would haunt every note he ever wrote. He once admitted, "When my mother died, I lost my anchor, but I also found my reason to sing." And sing he did. At 16, he penned Diana, a love letter to a girl who barely noticed him. The song exploded, selling 10 million copies. Overnight, Paul Anka became one of the biggest teen idols in the world. He was just a kid, but suddenly he was headlining stadiums, mobbed by screaming fans, chased by cameras, his face on every magazine cover. From 1957 to 1963, his voice defined youth. Lonely Boy, Put Your Head on My Shoulder, Puppy Love. He was flying from continent to continent, performing over 200 nights a year. But what fans never saw was the crushing isolation. Backstage, he collapsed from exhaustion. Hotel rooms were silent and cold. Fame gave him applause, but it stole his peace. And then came the first fall, the Beatles. The British invasion swept through America and rewrote the rules of music. Overnight, teen idols were tossed aside. Record labels turned their backs. Critics said Paul Anka was finished. Yesterday's news, a relic before he was even 30. For most idols, that would have been the end. But Paul Anka didn't vanish. He reinvented himself, quietly, in the shadows, writing for legends who would outshine even him. It was in Paris, 1968. One night, he heard a French ballad on the radio, Comme d'habitude. The melody haunted him. In a small hotel room, he rewrote the lyrics in English, and those words would become My Way. Frank Sinatra recorded it. The rest is history. The anthem sold over 75 million copies. It became the defining song of Sinatra's career. But here's what people forget. It was Paul Anka's pen that made it immortal. Yet while the world celebrated Sinatra, Anka himself was drowning in failures. A business deal had already cost him $1 million. His family life was under strain, and he was learning the brutal truth. Sometimes the world has to forget you before it remembers you. But Paul Anka wasn't just writing for Sinatra. He gave Tom Jones She's a Lady. He co-wrote This Is It with Michael Jackson. He created the Tonight Show theme that played across America every night for 3 decades. He wasn't just in music. He was inside the bloodstream of pop culture itself. But behind every triumph, the darkness grew. He married Anne de Zoget, a Parisian model, in 1963. They had 5 daughters together. For nearly 4 decades, they looked like the perfect family. But fame is a thief. Tours, endless flights, and the demands of staying relevant chipped away at their bond. Paul admitted later, "I wasn't unfaithful, just unavailable." Fame doesn't cheat, but it steals time. The marriage collapsed in 2000. 37 years gone. Anne passed away in 2017. And Paul could only look back with regret, saying, "When she left, I felt like a song that lost its bridge. Still beautiful, but broken." But if his first marriage ended in quiet sadness, his second became a full-blown tabloid war. In the 2000s, Paul married Anna Oberg, a Swedish model 30 years younger. For a brief moment, it looked like redemption. They had a son, Ethan, Paul's only boy, born when Anka was already in his 60s. But what began as a new chapter turned into the ugliest battle of his life. The marriage collapsed after just 2 years. Then came the custody fight. Anna claimed he was too old to raise a child. The courts became battlefields. The headlines screamed scandal. And the man who once ruled the charts was reduced to a father fighting for the right to see his son. 7 years. That's how long it lasted. Endless hearings, accusations, sleepless nights. Friends said he was never the same. The charisma faded, the exhaustion showed. But he never missed a day in court. "I've been a singer all my life," he said, "but in that courtroom, I was just a father trying not to lose his child." Finally, in 2017, at nearly 80 years old, Paul Anka won sole custody of Ethan. The courtroom victory didn't come with applause, just relief. He drove home in silence, too tired to celebrate, too grateful to speak. That battle changed him forever. To the world, Paul Anka was still the icon behind Diana and My Way. But at home, he was just Dad. And for the first time, that was enough. Still, the ghosts never left him. Buddy Holly, the rock pioneer, recorded Anka's song, "It Doesn't Matter Anymore," in 1959. Only weeks before dying in a plane crash. Paul was just 17 when he lost his friend. The royalties? He gave them all to Buddy's widow. "It wasn't mine anymore," he said. "It belonged to him." That wound never healed. And then Sinatra, his mentor, his mirror. They were friends for 40 years. They laughed in Vegas lounges, shared secrets no one else would ever hear. When Frank died in 1998, Paul broke down. At the funeral, as My Way played, he mouthed the words through tears. "I didn't just lose a friend, I lost my reflection." Even Elvis nodded to him across a Vegas stage. Even Michael Jackson leaned on his advice. But every legend Anka touched, Holly, Sinatra, Jackson, eventually slipped into tragedy. It's almost as if his pen was blessed with brilliance, but cursed with loss. Now, at 84, Paul Anka lives far from the madness of his youth. His estate in Los Angeles is filled with gold records, platinum discs, and memories of a world he once conquered. His net worth, over $80 million, means nothing compared to the sound of his son's laughter echoing in the halls. He still performs occasionally, but not for the crowds of 50,000. Today, the audience that matters most is a single boy who calls him Dad. Ethan became the encore he never expected, the one song that will outlive them all. Paul Anka wrote the soundtrack to generations. He gave Sinatra his anthem. He stood with Elvis, Tom Jones, Michael Jackson, Buddy Holly. He outlived the British invasion, disco, rock, pop, and hip-hop. But his greatest fight wasn't against changing trends. It was against the silence left by his mother, the loneliness of hotel rooms, and the courtroom that almost took his son. The world remembers him for Diana, for Put Your Head on My Shoulder, for My Way. But the truth? Paul Anka's real legacy is not the roar of a stadium. It's the quiet endurance of a man who refused to be broken. Because after everything, the fame, the heartbreak, the battles, the loss, Paul Anka didn't just survive. He endured, and he did it his way.